Hey, everybody, my name's Kurt Conrad, and this is West 4th and Goal, a podcast for high school football fans in North Central Ohio. Joining me in the Ideal Works podcast studio are co-hosts Noah Jones and Zach Heiser. And guys, if things keep growing this way, we're going to need a few more microphones, it seems like.
We're going to need another editor, too.
The more the merrier.
We reached a milestone earlier this week. We have ways to track how many downloads we've gotten, and we topped 25,000 as of Monday. And since then, we've gone over 26,000 unique downloads. And Zach, for those of us who aren't especially web savvy, what is a unique download?
Oh, Kurt, I have no idea. No, I'm kidding. A unique download is essentially just a unique listener. So I'm looking at the totals right now, and we're over the 27,000 mark.
Hot diggity.
And I'm sure that's not a huge number for podcasts that are bigger in scope and have all the resources of, say, an ESPN or something like that. But we are targeted for a very specific audience, and it's just the three of us, and we're just kind of stumbling our way through here. So, I mean, that seems like it's a pretty impressive number for 6 weeks, right?
We're pleased.
Our podcast host site gives us a pretty detailed account on where we're being downloaded at. And in the past 6 weeks, our show has been downloaded in 46 states and 22 countries. I wrote them down earlier today. We've been downloaded in Brazil and Japan, United Arab Emirates, and one time in Burundi. So for whoever's listening to us in Burundi, thanks for doing that.
We're still working on a presence in North Korea, though.
I just think it's funny that Russia's listening to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not pointing this out to pound on our chest and say look at us, but I've always kind of thought this was a kind of a give and take relationships with the listeners. So I mean, it's awesome that you guys are paying attention to us, and we certainly appreciate that. We got another great show lined up this week, but as usual, we need to thank Andy McIntyre and the crew over at Two Cousins Pizza. Two Cousins is the official pizza of West 4th and Goal. We went with the Stromboli again this week, and for the second week in a row, and I think I speak for everyone in here when I say it's probably the best Stromboli in town. So that's
For sure.
So stop by Two Cousins Pizza at 103 North Main, or give Andy a call at 419-522-2211. That's 419-522-2211. Two Cousins Pizza, it's the official pizza of West 4th and Goal. All right, finally. This week's guest, he ranks among the Mid-Ohio Athletic Conference leaders in tackles. He's averaging more than 11 stops a game. He has a sack a game, and he scored his very first high school touchdown a few weeks ago. He is Ontario's Mitch Pittman. And Mitch, thanks for coming down, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing tonight?
Not too bad, thanks. We certainly appreciate you taking some time. Just tell us what it was like to score that first career touchdown. If I'm not mistaken, it was a strip and kind of a fumble recovery sort of thing.
It was a fumble recovery touchdown for about 20 yards. I'll be honest, I didn't even know how that touchdown felt until I sat down with my dad after the game. I didn't know how to celebrate. I didn't know how to react. I wasn't expecting it. I stood in the end zone, and I was like, well,
what do I do now?
I was like, where's the ref? I got to give the ball to the ref. Where is he? And he ran over, and I fist bumped my defensive line coach, and it was great because if you get a touchdown or a sack fumble or anything, he takes you to B-dubs.
Well, there you go.
So nice. I'm going to eat a lot of wings.
I was going to say, that's a couple of pretty decent free meals for you here in the last week. And that was a big deal because it was against Marion Harding, which is a Mid-Ohio Athletic Conference foe, a big school, and that was your first MOAC win since you guys joined the conference. So, I mean, that's got to feel especially nice.
And that was good redemption for us. We went down to their house last year, and we had an unfortunate game. There was they actually recovered two fumbles against us for touchdowns. One was a botched punt, and another one was just a fumble on our quarterback, and that was two touchdowns. And we actually ended up losing by, I think, 1 or 2 touchdowns in that game. So that was a nice redemption for us.
Right. So you're standing there in the end zone. Did you ever imagine that you would be after last year, and it's something we want to talk about. You were injured last year.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about it off camera. I mean, did you ever think that day would come, I guess?
I didn't even think I was going to play this year, let alone score a touchdown on defense. The doctors told me that I may never be able to play. They recommended that I didn't play. I was actually going to run cross country, believe it or not. If you look at me, I don't know if you could imagine me in the cross country.
Probably not
shorts,
going to end real well.
No, but that was that was my highlight of the season, and I hope to do it again.
What was the injury last year? Just tell the folks what happened.
So it was a complex injury. I received something called a stinger, and for those of you who don't know what a stinger is, it's a elongation of your nerve running from your neck to your shoulder. Oof. And when I would hit someone, my head would go one way and my shoulder would go another, causing nerve damage to occur. And a stinger heals somewhat like a concussion. So they say if you have 2 or 3 concussions, you're out.
Right.
And so it's very slow healing. And actually, in the series of 2 weeks, I had about 12 or 13 stingers. And so I couldn't even raise my arm. I couldn't get anything out of my locker. I couldn't pick anything up, and it was just bad. And I actually I had about 6 stingers against Marion Harding, and then I had the rest against our next week game, and I was out after that.
Can you tell?
How many? Oh, go ahead.
No, can you tell when you get one, or is
you can? It's a burning sensation. You can't even lift your arm. My arm was dangling limp on the field.
What's the recovery process like?
Well, there's nothing that you can do for recovery besides
great
besides wait, because I did go to Summit for a couple of days, and they're like, well, we can't tell you to do a shoulder workout because you'll hurt your neck, and if you do a neck workout, you'll hurt your shoulder. So I just had to wait.
And they told me, sorry, I might be jumping the gun with our list of questions, but Summit is something with the military?
No, Summit is in Ontario, near the Roadhouse.
I'm so sorry.
Brown Derby Roadhouse, I think. I don't know where it is.
It's like a therapy place.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it was perfectly in line with what
Texas
we were talking about. I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm an idiot. That's fine.
No, that's all right.
And you touched on. I mean, there's not like there's no rehab for a stinger. I mean, you just have to sit there and wait till you get better.
You have to sit there and wait. And they told me that the recovery could be up to a year and a half. And I would go to the doctor and just have Dr. Zuasi, and I would just have regular checkups. And he would push in on my arm, and even he would put slightest pressure, and I couldn't keep my arm stable. And it was by about May, I'd say, like early in the year, and all of a sudden my strength was back. It was a miracle. And I decided I was playing football.
Right. So you get cleared, but they don't want you to have. You were a linebacker last year, and as a sophomore, I think you led Ontario in tackles as your sophomore year. They have to move you from that spot this year. Just talk to us a little bit about that. Why did they move you, and where did they move you to, and how's that transition going?
Well, so the reason I was getting these stingers is I actually got my first one on kickoff, so it was high impact.
Okay.
You're starting from far away, running full speed into someone. So I was playing inside linebacker and running back, and so you would start behind the line of scrimmage, and then you would hit someone at full speed. But the difference between that is D-line, you're already lined up head-to-head with someone, so that when you make that impact, it's still that initial impact, but it's grappling rather than an explosive impact. Right. So that's why it was actually kind of funny, because when I scored that touchdown, my coaches joked with me. They're like, oh, you should have need that instead of taking the risk on the hit. But
so, I mean, they moved you to, what, a nose guard?
They moved me to nose guard.
And then offense is off the board now. I mean, there was a time when you were running back, from what I understand.
We talked O-line a little bit, but we're worried about pooling and everything, and we just don't want to take any risks. They're not even letting me do scout team. But it's a lot of fun playing nose. I actually experimented with that a little bit last year preseason, and Lexington thought I was going to be nose, and I ended up playing outside linebacker. I've been all over the field on defense. I've been outside linebacker, inside linebacker, and nose, and a little bit of weak tackle. So I'm just experimenting.
Right. When they first approach you with that, the coaching staff, I mean, do you feel whatever I need to do, or I mean, are you thrilled to death about getting?
Well, it was actually my idea to play nose, believe it or not. I loved it when I played it last year, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do inside linebacker, and I didn't want to run cross country.
I don't blame you. Running sucks.
Yeah, trust me. I run track and do middle distance, and a little bit of distance, and the mile is the worst thing ever.
I tell you what, though, you guys have a really good girls cross country team.
They're amazing. Yeah,
that's probably a team that could.
Their captain Anna Gregg and Grace Maurer and Araya, and there's a freshman Ellie Maurer who have just been killing it.
I think a couple of them went to state last year.
Yeah, Anna Gregg and Becca Gregg, they're sisters, and they both went to state individually.
Right. So you guys have a new coach this year. It's the third head coach you've had in 4 years.
Yes.
Chris Miller is his name. He's an Ontario graduate, coach football and I can't remember, maybe Lima or
Yes.
Bath High School, maybe. He came back here. He was the AD, and then is it hard transitioning, I guess, year after year to a new coach? I mean, how's the turnover with all that turnover? Is it hard to maintain any sort of continuity, I guess?
Well, I'll be honest, it was difficult for me individually to have that transition that many times.
Right.
But I was relieved when we found out Miller was our coach because he was our AD beforehand.
Sure.
And everyone respected the crap out of that guy. And so when he comes in, we already love him, you
Right.
know. I can't talk much about Krieger because I had him as a freshman.
Right.
So I didn't really have him as a coach.
Right.
But Hawkins, when he came in, he was the new guy, and he felt that he had to earn everyone's respect.
Sure.
And we didn't really know who he was. We just heard that he had success with Galleon and everyone.
Right.
And we just loved Miller. He welcomed us with open arms, and I was really happy to hear that he would be our coach.
I suspect that maybe the hardest part about getting a third coach in 4 years is that it's hard to sort of get used to a playbook because I'm
Yeah.
only assuming everyone has a different playbook each time you come into a new sort of training camp or whatever you want to call it. A new system is given to you, and do you sort of forget? You force yourself to forget what you've learned in the past?
I
and
can
start over?
still remember some of our sideline calls from last year with Hawkins. It's actually funny that you talk about that, but some people think that it's a bad thing that we learn all these schemes every year, but we have fast learners. I was in track season, and we would meet and talk about schemes with our coaches, just like learning it early. You got to learn it early. 2 days. And I know it's frustrating that you have to learn these schemes every time, but it also helps you understand the game as a whole, you know?
Sure. Well, it also probably, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm sure it also sort of helps you get more of a background if you're on defense, reading what other offenses might look like because you've been a part of those potential, maybe not the exact same play, but formations for sure.
Well, yeah, and the offense that we're doing this year versus the offense we're doing last year are just night and day because we would have more of a spread offense last year, and this year we're just going smash mouth full speed.
Gotcha.
So you get to see every aspect of the game, which I love about it.
Cool.
Now, when I talked to Chris earlier in the week and asked him if there was anyone out there who he would like to send up and beyond, he recommended you. He said he's a great kid. You know, he's coming back from this injury, and he's headed to the military after high school. Just tell us a little bit about that. What led you to that decision, and where are you headed?
So I plan on enlisting in the Air National Guard once I graduate. And what brought me to that, my uncle has been in the Navy, and I was looking around. I'm interested in engineering, and I know engineering is a lot in the military, and it's also a good way to pay for college.
Sure.
And so that got me on that route. I looked at ROTC for a little bit, and then I looked at the Air Guard because my family's friends with Matt Dilley, and he's out there.
Okay.
And so what I do is enlist after high school and go to basic training next summer.
And it's Air Force basic training?
It'd be Air Guard.
Okay.
So I would go to Texas.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry for the listeners and myself. What is the difference between the Air Guard and the Air Force?
so the Guard as a whole, National Guard, is like America's current militia. So if there is an attack at home, or if there is a hurricane or any natural disaster, you would come and relieve that. But that's not. They don't only do things in the country; they also go overseas and assist the other branches.
So is that like the 179th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
And if I think what the president can call and whatever it's called, I don't even know the term. Like he can call you guys into national service too. Is that how it works? I mean,
I believe so.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know that 179th flew to Puerto Rico to help with the hurricane that hit last summer.
Right.
So certainly they do stuff internationally, as you said.
Correct.
Too, yeah.
So why the Guard over another branch for you?
Well, they honestly have what I want. I want to be at home a little more. I like how the LOM base is right here. I plan on going to the branch after I go through. Let me explain this. So I would go to basic next summer, and then I would go to 8 months of technical school after that and take a gap year and then go to college next year. But what I was saying is that after that year of technical school, I plan on going to the branch, and it's just right here at home, you know. I can work 1 weekend a month through the Guard and get paid throughout that month after month, and get my training throughout college. So it's just really easy for me.
Yeah, I had a couple of roommates who were in similar situations when I went to Bowling Green, and it worked out just fine for them. In fact, there were times where they had more money than I did, and I was envious.
Yeah.
You didn't sign up though?
I did not sign up. They did not get me.
Right. Now you obviously, I mean, you have some pretty strong feelings, I guess, about serving your country.
Yeah.
I mean, with that as a background, I mean, what are your thoughts, I guess, on the Colin Kaepernick controversy? And I mean, there's been a lot said here recently with the Nike advertising campaign. For those of you who might not know a lot about that, I would imagine if you're listening to this podcast, you probably at least have a passing knowledge of the controversy surrounding Colin Kaepernick. If
I'm
not,
envious of the people that don't know.
Right. This is the abridged version. He was the quarterback of the 49ers, actually led them to a Super Bowl. Seems like a lifetime ago now.
Yeah.
In 2016, people noticed that he was sitting down for the national anthem before games, and then after that, he was taking a knee. He was doing that kind of he was displeased with the
treatment of African Americans in our country by law enforcement.
Sure. And I mean, that was his stance. That was the protest, and it kind of got hijacked right away and turned into something that, if I could editorialize for a minute, turned into something that maybe it wasn't. Everyone thought that he was, protesting the country or the flag or the people who serve in the military as an extension, and that wasn't necessarily what he was the point of it. But with all that as a background, I mean, do you have any strong feelings about what has happened here with him here the last few years?
Well, for me, going into the military, I obviously don't agree with his decision to kneel for the flag.
Sure.
But I also don't believe that we can force someone to stand for the flag. The beauty of this country is that you have the option. We can't go around making everyone stand for the national anthem. It's not about what I believe or about what someone else believes. It's about what everyone believes. And me going in the military, I will fight for the right for someone to believe what they want to believe, even if I don't agree with them.
That makes me feel very good about
Mitchell's
the state
going
of
to
things.
save this podcast for when he runs for president someday, and he's going to be like, I've been politically aware for a long time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, and we'll get to that in a minute. But, I mean, Kaepernick became a free agent, never got re-signed. A lot of people think that the NFL owners had colluded to keep him out of the league. And then here just recently he was in the big Nike advertising campaign. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of protests initially. I just read something earlier today that said Nike's they've gone up in value like $6 billion since that campaign came out.
Yeah.
So
it's all free advertising to Nike.
Yeah, absolutely.
They knew what they were doing. Definitely.
Yeah, and you're a guy
you can
who
cut the
knows
Nike logo off your socks, but you still buy more socks.
And I mean, Zach, you know a little bit about this. I mean, that's a marketing bonanza, right? I mean, what they're doing.
Well, in a sense that there's one phrase: all publicity is good publicity, and I think this is the case for Nike. Definitely in the Kaepernick thing. I mean, everyone's talking about them. You might have half of the country that disagrees, but half that agrees. But there's a people like to say that are going to boycott certain things, but I mean, how long does that really last? Right. Just ad impressions alone and like media impressions on social media that Nike's gotten over this period.
Eventually the memes will disperse.
Right. And Nike's an international company. They're not just an American company. So I think I saw an article recently that campaigns especially resonated with people outside the country.
Okay. Now, the mechanics of high school football are such that the team is rarely out for the national anthem. I mean, you guys warm up. There's a coin toss. You guys run into your locker room for final preparations or whatever. The band comes out and plays. They play the national anthem. Then you guys come back out, which is okay with me because if there was, kids in the area who were taking a knee, that's a story.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if you guys were out there and a teammate took a knee, how would that be treated, I guess? I mean, how would that go, you think?
Well, that's not something that can be, it would be more disrespectful for me to stop during the national anthem and get him up and shove him up and stand, Yeah. That's, I think, and especially on the high school level, I'm not sure if a kid in high school fully comprehends the magnitude of what he's doing.
Sure.
I feel like, even in student sections, I'll go to all the basketball games, and I'll see kids from other schools sit down for the national anthem. And it's not because they have a strong opinion about black rights in America, but it's because they want attention.
Right.
So I think that's something that can be addressed afterwards.
I don't think it happened in Richland County, but I did hear of some sort of national news outlets publishing stories of high schoolers whose coaches wouldn't let them kneel during the national anthem during the football seasons previously, maybe over the last 2 of them. And I guess I can't be like, would your coach do that? Because that would be throwing him under the bus. But I just think that that's a really interesting sort of way to do it, is to sort of take away their freedom of speech. I know that Larry, our editor, has sort of talked about how the NFL players are being paid to do their job, and so the NFL is within their rights to do what they've now done, where they fine you if you do kneel. But I don't know that I really agree with that idea, because I feel like even though they're not 18-year-old students or not 18-year-old adults yet, they should still have some sort of freedom of speech, whether or not they're fully understanding what they're doing, or if it's just a trend that's popular to them.
And I think maybe some coaches see it, and we've talked about it in several different ways, but it's up to a coach to protect his kids from themselves. Maybe sometimes.
Sure, absolutely.
Before we were talking about that, like when it comes to heat and stuff like that, kids just want to run through a wall, and they'll, you got to rein them in. Maybe in this situation, and I don't know, I haven't talked to any coaches that are done any any stories on it, but maybe coaches, some guys would say, I'm gonna put the onus on me, and I'm gonna make them stand instead of letting those kids who may not know exactly what what the consequences of their actions are, instead of and just giving, like taking it for the letting the coach take
without a doubt, that's 100% a teacher, a principal, or the head coach, or an assistant coach for that matter. That's their job to do that. So I think that you're probably onto something.
Well, it's not even their job to enforce, but it's their job to inform also. That's something that could be a team discussion.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, it seems to me, and I've talked to Larry a little bit about this, I mean, if you're protesting, you absolutely want that big stage, right? I mean, Colin Kaepernick he's a high-profile guy in a high-profile position, and that's the stage. I mean, that's the perfect stage for a protester, right?
Since he started protesting.
Yeah, but that's the stage that protesters want. They want to be heard and they want to be seen, and that seems to me that was the perfect platform for what he was trying to do. Now, again, I don't know that I would have done it that way myself. I mean, I have always kind of felt that things have been, I and everyone in the room here is a white male. The playing field has always kind of been tilted in our favor, and that's not exactly a well-guarded secret, because I mean our country was founded by white males, and who's not going to stack the deck in their favor, I guess. So for me, I would stand for the national anthem for that reason. But that said, and I was talking to Larry about this off air, I don't know what it would be like when I drive home at night. I don't necessarily think I'm going to get pulled over, and if I get pulled over, I never fear for my life.
I'm usually greeted with a smile as opposed to a handgun.
And that's
especially when you have your Richland source code on.
Oh, usually then it's like, oh hey, no, thanks for covering our most recent news event.
Extra privilege.
But that's our experience, I guess, and not everyone has that same experience. So I mean, I would stand for the national anthem, but I certainly understand if people have some disagreements with that.
Sure, I think that there just needs to be more of an understanding amongst people of all different backgrounds, understand that not everyone understands things the way that everyone else understands them. But
Mitch, you talked about coaches and principals and teachers' responsibility to inform. Did you experience any of that at Ontario? Or?
We have not. I'm actually very proud of my team. In years past, which I was a captain last year also, and I've noticed we've had kids who have a problem with authority in years past. But this has been by far the most fun season that I've ever had. You don't really have to tell these guys to do anything. They just do it, and they know how it's done. And so this makes my job really easy.
Sure.
I would say as a whole, our school would want to go outside for the national anthem, not even to stand for it, but because we have a really good band.
Fair enough.
Do you think that respect is more of a credit for the amount of respect that you all have for Chris Miller?
Yes, I do. We get along with him, not even as – I don't even feel like he's a coach. Sometimes I feel like he's all of our dad, you know what I mean? He can get to business when he wants, but he can also joke around with us.
That's awesome. That's what a coach would want, I would imagine, to have people feel like there's a paternal connection in a way. I think that's really great.
And it's not even just I mean, he's still in the hallways, and he walks the hallways, make sure people have their hall pass, and you can joke around with him in the hallway. He was showing us his football socks the other day.
Nice.
And just messing around.
Now, when I was younger, and high school was a long time ago now for me, but I don't necessarily remember everything being so politicized. I mean, is that something as a young guy now who's about to cross that threshold into adulthood? Is that something you're more aware of now? I mean, how everything is coming from the left or the right on the political spectrum.
Well, I feel like a lot of that, nothing's changed. It's just that with social media becoming such a big part of everyone's lives, it's that the smallest thing can be made huge. If you look at it on your phone and it's on CNN, everyone assumes that is a huge issue.
Right.
Social media makes everything huge.
Yeah, and
if your friend posts a picture of a party on Instagram, you think that everyone was there because it got 300 likes.
Right.
Otherwise, back in the day, sorry.
I'm an old timer. I'm a graybeard. I know it.
You didn't even know that went down.
Right. And we've talked to some of our other guests about this. I mean, this is the world you guys have grown up in now. I mean, it's all social media all the time.
Yeah, what year were you born?
2000.
So, I mean, how aware are you? I mean, are you pretty active on social media?
Kinda.
Yeah.
I don't really like social media, to be honest.
I mean,
why not?
I don't like knowing everything all the time. I'll be honest.
Oh, man. You're not going to be a reporter then.
No.
Do you have to be hyper aware, though, of everything you do as an I mean, everyone's got a camera in their pocket, or, they can record everything that's going on.
You got to be careful.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You got to be careful. You got a locker room full of boys. You don't want them recording you doing anything stupid.
Sure. Now, Chris told me that when I called him and asked who could come up here, he said, Mitch is a really outgoing, charismatic guy. Have you ever thought about running for office?
No. I'm not a political guy. I'll stick with my engineering.
Fair enough. Well, let's take a quick break. We'll come back with Mitch Pitt. Can you stick around for a little bit longer?
Yeah.
All right.
You got more pizza?
Yeah, absolutely. You can
Brought to you by Two Cousins.
Two Cousins Pizza, the official pizza of West 4th and Goal. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Thanks. Welcome back to West 4th and Goal, a podcast for North Central Ohio football fans. I'm Kurt Conrad, and we are here with Mitch Pittman. And Mitch, thanks for sticking around. Kind of some bad news out of the Ontario community here recently. It was dealt a pretty bad blow with the death of 10-year-old Sadie Turnbaugh. She was a fourth grader at Stingel, and from what I understand, she was killed in an ATV accident. Is there anything that the football team is planning to do, I guess, here in the coming weeks?
Yes, actually, tomorrow after team meal, we'll all be heading on a bus together to the calling hours to just see the family and support them.
Yeah, and I mean, from what I understand, she has some older brothers who are in high school with you.
Yeah, we love the Turnbaughs.
Sure, and I mean, what's it been like at school this week, and how has the community kind of rallied around the Turnbaugh family?
We just come together, even local businesses. It's something as small as a local business putting God Bless the Turnbaughs on a sign, They're not back at school yet, but I know when they come back, we'll welcome them with open arms. That stinks, but we'll be behind the Turnbaugh family.
Right. And the Ontario community has always been very supportive. Obviously this is a terrible situation, but I mean, for as long as I've been around, and I've been in the area covering high school sports since the fall of 2000, it's one of those communities that you can always count on to turn. I mean, it's one of those last person out of Ontario turn out the lights when it's football Friday night, because it's always been real. I mean, is that something you even recognize when you're on the field, is just how behind you the community is?
Yeah, actually last Friday was really cool. Even though we lost, I did take a moment. We have those Ghost Riders, and they told me to just take a moment and look around and look at the stands. And I looked at the stands, and that's the most people I've ever seen. And even just that tough loss against North Union, I was thinking, oh man, people are gonna be talking crap. But then you turn around and you see all those people, and you think, man, they're still behind us. You got people lined up at the fence behind everyone, and it's.
And I would imagine, and we talked to a lot of high school seniors about this. that's stuff I would appreciate. I would imagine you appreciate that a lot more, knowing that it's it's not too far down the road where this is all gonna all gonna come to an end for you.
When I just remember being, elementary school, middle school, playing football behind the stands, not paying a look of attention to the game,
right?
Trying to break someone's nose, and then the next thing you know, you're the one leading the show on the field.
Right. And I mean, did you play any varsity as a freshman? Or
I did. I played my last 5 games at inside linebacker.
Well, I mean, I would imagine it. When you look back at that, I mean, it probably seemed like this day would never come. I mean, you never think that it's going to rush past the way it does.
Well, and it's just funny the difference that you feel stepping on the field as a freshman versus as a senior.
Right.
Because I remember being a little freshman going at inside linebacker. What the heck? That was through a series of injuries, by the way. Don't think I'm some guy. And I was shaking in my cleats, and now I'm out on the field, and I don't even feel any different. I feel at home.
Sure. How does the game? I always hear people say it slows down. The more experience you get. I mean, how has it changed from a wide-eyed 14-year-old playing varsity football to where you are now?
You can just see the field, and it's funny because I would always feel hostile on the football field. Everyone's your enemy.
Sure.
But now I can get down on the line and not have a conversation with a guy across from you, but just joke around with him a little bit. Have fun while you're playing, not talk crap.
Is this trash talk?
No, this is not trash talk. This is just how you doing.
Oh,
hey,
okay.
Nice hit. It's just fun to.
Who's the biggest trash talker in the area? Someone come to mind?
No. We like to hit.
He'll tell us after the season.
Yeah. Tell us off air.
Off air. No, actually, a big theme that Miller put out this year is that we talk with our pads.
Sure.
Because that's been a big problem with us in years past with personal fouls that just killed us last year.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been doing really well with that this year.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about what happened last week. You guys, and we talked a little bit out of practice the other day. It was Buckeye Valley 19, Ontario 60, and that was there were a couple of losses to really good teams that you guys had, and that seems like a bad, not necessarily a bad loss, but certainly a game that you guys could have won.
Yeah, that was a rough loss for us. I think it was in the fourth quarter. They had that breakaway run for about 80 yards for that touchdown. But the thing that was great about our guys is that we never quit.
Right.
We could have even won that game in the last 30 seconds if we would have stopped them on that fourth down.
Right, and I heard that you guys, you were leading at halftime?
Correct.
Okay.
We were leading 10-3 at halftime.
Right, and then you had some opportunities in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, it was certainly a winnable game, and that's probably a little bit disappointing for you. But, I mean, are there lessons you learn in a game like that you can build on going forward here?
Yeah, just stay focused and never give up, because if you really look at film, they didn't physically dominate us.
Right.
It was one guy made a mistake here, one guy made a mistake here, missed a block here, missed a tackle here, and then that's the game. You just have to learn to always do your job and keep going, because the most frustrating thing on a Saturday morning watching film is to see how close you actually were to winning. If maybe I would have stepped this way instead of that way, or if we would have made this call, or if you would have ran just a little bit faster, then we would have won.
Right. I have family who would play. My nephew's a quarterback over at Hillsdale, and he talks about going in and watching film. And he said, sometimes it's just hard to go in there and watch yourself on Saturday.
That's why I tell my parents, just going in to watch film is almost worse than losing the game.
Right.
You rant to your parents for an hour after you go home. It's midnight. You wake up. We have film at 7:30, and you have to relive it.
Sheesh, 7:30 a.m.?
7:30 a.m.
That's criminal.
So you go in at 7:30?
Yeah.
And, for student council, we actually have stadium cleanup for home games. So I'm at the school by 7 o'clock on Saturday mornings, clean up the stadium, go, lift for an hour, run a lap around the school, then watch film until 10, and then we coach fifth graders for flag football until noon.
So there are aspects of high school football that you probably won't miss so much next year.
Coach Miller wasn't joking when he said that you're a good kid. Holy cow. That's good. That's crazy.
We like coaching those kids for flag football, though. They're
Sure.
good kids. It gives us hope, too, to see that this program's more than just us.
Right.
The next generation.
Yeah, and there's some good kids, trust me. I'm impressed.
There's some coming?
No, we were having funny conversations. We're like, man, if we would have had that one kid on Friday night, I don't know. we might have got a few more touchdowns.
Right.
Kurt, I got one more thing. I just wanted to say I think it's really cool that you get to coach little kids. It's a huge sort of leadership role.
It is.
That young men, young high school, soon-to-be graduates, like it's a great introduction to a real profession sort of thing where, you have something that you're not just working for yourself or for a grade, but you're doing something for the community, or at least for children and their family. I think that's really great that you get to do that.
Is that something, the community service aspect? Do you enjoy doing that?
I do enjoy doing that. The whole team enjoys doing that. Sometimes those
politician, man.
Their ages range from 1st grade to 5th grade.
Sure.
So some teams can be a little more frustrating than others. So you always hope you get kind of an older team, but it's always nice to coach the little kids, teach them the basics of football.
They're cuter, probably.
They are cuter, and they run funny. No, they don't.
Well, that's
They're
really,
good.
that's
you should be surprised. I wish I had a camera out there because they make some impressive plays for how young they are. I couldn't have done that when I was a kid.
If the Richland Source's sports writer were more on top of it, he might go out there on Saturday morning and write a feature story about it.
You should just come out for stadium cleanup at 7.
I'll pass. That's got a hard pass.
I think I'm going to sit that one out, too. So coming up this week, you guys, you're at River Valley.
We're at River Valley.
Another winnable game, it looks like. I mean, just looking
Very winnable.
Without, divulging the game plan, what do they do well? What concerns you, and what are you guys going to have to do to win?
If you want to know anything about River Valley, you can watch the film from Buckeye Valley because they run the same old spread, try to beat you on short passes. They have a very good running quarterback and a good running back, and we're just going to try to shut them down on the pass. We don't want to give their quarterback enough time to pass the ball.
Yeah, and we were talking off air earlier about River Valley, and this was, again, making me feel real old, but I actually covered an Ontario playoff game. It was their first ever playoff appearance, and I think it was the fall of 2001, and they played River Valley and handled them pretty well, and then lost that following week. But you were telling me you were 1 year old?
I was 1 year old. So I remember that game like it was yesterday.
So yeah, that's not necessarily awesome, I guess. Anyhow, this week, other games in the area that are worth mentioning. Another big game in the MOAC, and I don't know if you've seen either of these teams yet or not. Galleon is at Clear Fork.
We have not played Galleon or Clear Fork.
Not played them yet, so those are, and they're both, I mean, Clear Fork is 6-0 and just rolling people right now. Galleon, I think, is a surprise 4-2. Noah, you've seen them a little bit.
Yeah. I have a feeling Clear Fork will be victorious.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I'm not the football reporter. It's not that I'm not impressed with them. It's just that I've seen two pretty bad losses that they had to go under.
And Clear Fork doesn't have that star player.
Right.
They are solid as a team, and that's what makes me have respect for Clear Fork. And we actually play them after this week, and I'm excited too.
Right.
The whole team's excited.
Yeah,
too.
there's not one guy like when we had Jared Schaefer in here a few weeks ago, and he's kind of the leader of that bunch, but I was telling him, there was a time when
he's a co-quarterback. I mean,
yeah,
that's
exactly. He's not even running the show by himself out there. But I mean, there was a time when I was covering Clear Fork, and they had a running back named Jordan McCune, and he was the show. I mean, he got the ball just about every play, and he deserved to get it every play because he's the best high school running back I've ever seen. But they have a lot more balance right now, it seems like, and I would imagine that makes preparing for a team like that is a lot more difficult than knowing they're just going to turn around and hand it to the same guy over and over again.
Well, I don't know if this really goes along with what you're saying or if I'm just weird, but I think I was reading a ESPN like fantasy draft like like best ways to win or like theories about how to win fantasy football when I was like in high school or whatever. And I think what they said basically is like, yeah, your first couple of rounds you're going to get some really good athletes, but the game isn't won because it was baseball. The game isn't won because you have Bryce Harper. The game is won because you have really good above average players at every other position except for at left field or right field or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. I mean, it's if you're preparing for 6 skill guys instead of just 1 skill guy.
That all starts at the line of scrimmage, too. It's not even skill guys because I don't care who you put in the backfield, but if you don't have a line, then you're not going to win.
Absolutely. That's something that every offensive player I've ever talked to has said.
Yep. And that's what makes me have so much more respect for the game after playing left tackle for a season and a half. I used to being the running back and getting all the glory for a touchdown that I ran, but no one even touched me. And it's like anyone could have done it.
Right.
Yeah, I ran 40 yards.
Right.
It's you work the hardest and get none of the glory.
I don't think
what's beautiful about
I don't think I'm throwing Mitch under the bus here, but he does not look like your typical left tackle.
No, I am not. That was fun though. It is fun. The thing that I love about left tackle versus a skill position or any lineman position is that you're going against the same guy the entire game.
Right.
It's more personal. You can get beat one play but beat him the next.
Right. Other area games of interest, I think. Mansfield Senior is at Ashland.
I covered senior high last week, and they took one on the chin, kind of surprisingly, I thought, against Lexington. Zach, your alma mater. Senior high actually led that game 9-0. They threw another long touchdown pass. It got called back by a penalty. Shortly after that, Lex blocks a punt in the end zone. It's recovered for a touchdown. That just opens the floodgates, and I think Lex ended up scoring 30-some unanswered points.
I didn't hear who recovered that punt for a touchdown.
It was Caden Berry who recovered. He blocked it and recovered it. It was a great play. But yeah, that opened the floodgates, and Cade Stover, who had come in here earlier this season and talked to us, he's going to Ohio State to play defense, but he looked like a very, very good offensive player last week. He rushed for 200 and some yards and 2 touchdowns. And I mean, that was a rough game for the Tigers. And talking to Chioke Bradley, senior high's coach, afterward, he said, it starts with us, and we got to get it fixed, And he was at a loss for words, which and you guys remember Chioke coming in here last year. It's not very often that he's at a loss for words. So they are kind of in panic. I wouldn't say it's panic mode, but it's certainly circle the wagon time over at senior high.
Yeah, it can't be a fun atmosphere.
Lexus looked pretty good this year. They had a couple tough losses. You guys beat them in week 1, right?
Yep. Yeah, we did. We beat them. We were down by 7. We were down by 7 with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and we scored 2 touchdowns.
That's right. You guys scored 2 late. They had another close loss to Shelby.
Right.
So, I mean, they could be sitting, and Lex actually has a real big game this week. I think they host West Holmes, and West Holmes is another one of those teams. I think West Holmes and Lex are actually tied in the conference standings. They're both 2-1 in the conference. I think Worcester leads at 3-0. Ashland's 2-0. But yeah, I mean, that's a huge game for a lot of different reasons. I mean, I haven't done all the homework that maybe I should have with the postseason rushing up on us. But I mean, if Lex wins that games and wins against some of those other teams here going forward, I mean, they could potentially play themselves into playoff contention in that region, because that region is Division III, it's Region 10, and it's not as strong as it has been in the past. So I mean, 6-4 could potentially get them in. I mean, there's a lot of football left to be played before then, and you guys are kind of in the same situation too. I mean,
we usually find ourselves in the same situation as Lexington. It's always a close game, and then we usually have about the same season. I do have a lot of respect for them with their schedule, though. They face a lot of tough teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Other games of interest for our Ashland County listeners, Loudonville is at Orrville, and Loudonville, I mean, you guys probably don't know a lot about it, but they have won, I think, 4 in a row after opening the season with 2 straight losses. Orrville is 5-1, Loudonville is 4-2. That's a huge points game for Loudonville if they're able to pull that off. And Kevin Maltrich, who's the head coach at Loudonville, he spent a year coaching at Madison a few years back. I guess it's been more than a few now. But he's got things going in the right direction, because they are traditionally a very strong program, and they had kind of fallen on hard times here recently. So it's good to see them actually playing a meaningful game this late in the season. Another team playing a meaningful game in Ashland County, who not a lot of people probably expected, is the Mapleton Mounties. They beat an undefeated South Central team last week. They're 5-1. They're at the top of their computer ratings region. I think it's Region 25 of Division 7. They play Norwalk St. Paul, and even the most casual high school football fan in the area probably knows about Norwalk St. Paul and everything they've accomplished here in the last 20 years. I mean, they are a perennial playoff powerhouse. And I was going back, I think Mapleton hadn't beaten St. Paul since 1995. So, wow. I mean, that's a huge game for them. And we always like to update people on how our previous week's guest did. Lucas, they won 48-0 last week. They actually play a Division IV team this week, Harrison Central. But Jeb Grover, last week's guest, he kept our streak rolling. I think he had 4 touchdowns and rushed for 200 and some yards maybe. So you should expect to have the game of your life this week after coming in and sitting here with us.
Yeah, all right.
Expect a pick 6 and a strip and
all right,
touchdown.
I'll hold you to that.
Well,
Well, very good. I think that's everything that we had planned on this week. Mitch, we certainly appreciate you coming down and sitting in here and talking to us. It's West 4th and Goal. You can download us at where can they get us, Zach?
Wherever you listen to podcasts. Podcast app on your phone. You can do it through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and, of course, richlandsource.com.
Or search the hashtag Pittman for Congress.
Pittman for Congress, 2020,
Yeah,
2030.
what would that be? 2030.
I don't even know. We'll find out.
We will find out soon enough. Again, thanks for listening to us, and stop by again next week.